Hello and welcome again to the latest edition of the Mabe podcast. I am super excited for our guest today, Dr. Jose Luis Zelaya. Welcome, Dr. Zelaya.
Gracias, de corazón. Thank you.
Thank you. That warms my heart too. So you have a very inspiring story to tell, but I want to let you tell it. I want to hear it from you. But importantly to our viewers, you're going to be a keynote this year at our Mabe convention, which is on May 7th and 8th in Livonia, Michigan. Um, so we're very much looking forward to that. So I know that you were born in Honduras and now you're living in Texas. So what can you tell me about your childhood and how you came to find yourself in the United States?
Yeah, well, I'm very excited to be at Mabe and to have a beautiful learning exchange with the overall community there. But when it comes to my personal journey, Honduras is very beautiful. It's a very beautiful country, very humble, hardworking people. The traditions, the sports, the passion, the beauty of nature, it's incredible. But at the same time, the memories that I have are very mixed with living in this very beautiful country, but among extreme levels of poverty and rampant violence and family, living in the dysfunctional family due to several issues that were connected to alcoholism on behalf of my father, domestic violence, natural disasters that created for me a lifestyle of living in the streets, working since a very young age, not having the ability and the privilege to attend school from an early age because I had to work since the very beginning of my early years, to being separated from my family after Hurricane Mitch in 1998. So my family first migrated to the United States, my mother and my younger sister, and I stayed behind in Honduras for about 2 years. And after 2 years is whenever I made the odyssey, the journey come to the United States to reunify with my mother, who was living at an immigration shelter in Houston, Texas. So I traveled across the different borders and the different countries, trying to reunify with my mother, and ended up in a detention center in here in South Texas, in the Valley. But due to the gracious essence of our nation, I was given the opportunity to reunify with my family in year 2000, almost 2001, because it was in December, actually December 7th of year 2000. And then I was given the opportunity to reunify with her and started a new journey in the United States that was grounded in seeing how my mother sacrificed herself to provide me an opportunity to attend school while she was having a series of jobs. So the childhood that I remember in Honduras was very beautiful, but it was mixed. It was mixed with a lot of pain, and with a lot of what I would call residues of colonization. Because whenever you live under systems that have and continue to experience those residues, it's very challenging and very difficult to have opportunities like the ones that I have had here in this beautiful country.
Hmm. Yeah, so I mean, it's important too for educators and other people to realize, that it's often two ways. Like you just hear about the bad things, and sometimes from an outside perspective, you can fixate on those. But really, it was a mixed experience. There was joy in your childhood. There were uh, good things happening as well. It's just there were these other factors.
Yeah, like for example, I remember literally, like, I didn't think then that this was a challenge, sort of speak, but places, for example, where we would shower were like waterfalls or ponds or rivers, like crystal rivers, or like oceans and beaches, because we didn't have showers. Or
Hmm.
places where we would sleep were like municipalities, stadiums, buses, because we didn't have a home. But whenever you live under that environment and you're not the only one that's going through that,
Hmm.
your job is to develop skills, such as multiplying zero times zero and making something out of that. When you don't have anything, but you're supposed to make something out of nothing, you develop hardworking abilities that allowed me now the opportunity to be where I am.
Wow, that's wonderful. So what was your school experience like in the United States? About how old were you? when you started, and what was that like for you?
It's very interesting because I remember first arriving in the U.S. and just being shocked by downtown Houston, and thinking that I kid you not that that I was gonna see Scooby Doo walking through downtown, or whenever I showed up to a hospital prior to going to school and getting like 20 or plus vaccinations, like I walked out of that place like I was a mummy, and just feel pain, and showing up to a school in the United States was the most magical thing for me because um, I just couldn't believe how massive it was. I couldn't believe how safe it was. I couldn't believe that there were teachers that were not in boycotting because they were not being paid. I couldn't believe that all I had to do was to make a line to get free lunch. I couldn't believe there was drinkable water, or a soccer field where I could stay and practice soccer with like real soccer balls, not just like plastic balls. It was amazing learning English, and it was beautiful to have teachers like Mrs. Wright or Mr. High Note or Mr. Rodriguez, who were not only teaching me math and science and English, but that were also helping me understand how to develop a sense of belonging in Houston, how to develop a sense of belonging in school, and how to better understand that my past didn't define my future, and to realize that an education could change not only my trajectory, but it could also help me honor my family. So school for me was very difficult in the beginning, especially as a Honduran in Houston. It was challenging not knowing the language. It was challenging feeling like I didn't belong in the community because of our lack of mobility. Whenever we would move to places, we would use the metro. So it was very challenging for me to like really experience the beauty of Houston, like going to parks or going to libraries. So for me, it was like going from the apartment where we live to school, back to the apartment, and occasionally work. But it was a beautiful experience. I had incredible teachers who inspired me, counselors who guided me, principals who disciplined me. But overall, I had a great system of support that helped me pave the way to academic success.
Yeah. So, I mean, I feel like collectively schools are getting much, much better at this, but how can schools support newcomers and multilingual learners?
Well, I think that for me, the reason why I have such an optimistic point of view is because of my point of reference. Whenever I think of school in Honduras, for example, the reason why I was able to value drinkable water is because in Honduras, oftentimes we would have to boil water from rain to be able to
Hmm.
drink, or we would have to drink out of hoses, from faucets, but there was no water, there was no running water. The reason why I valued safety and the reason why I valued computers, for example, was because we were very limited in access to those materials. So I think that what it's key is for educators and our education systems to see and to understand that lack of English proficiency does not mean lack of hope, or it does not mean lack of ambition, or it does not mean lack of dreams and aspirations. But instead, what it means is is hope. It's it's a sense of dreaming, and it's a sense of belonging that must be connected to the idea of academics, because newcomers and multilingual students have so much lived experience that they are a school themselves. They have so much to teach us. They have so much to be activated when it comes to their prior knowledge. But language oftentimes doesn't allow us to translate very efficiently some of those desires of succeeding. And sometimes it can be either lost in translation, or it could be misunderstood by our lack of ability to communicate that we want to be successful in life. So I think it's important for educators and our educational systems to see education not only as a sense of hope, but also as a sense of changing generations to come. That education is beyond an academic sense of achievement, or
Hmm.
beyond a personal sense of achievement, but that it provides an opportunity for us to honor our past, but also to create a legacy for the future.
Yeah. So it's like there's in the current time at surface level, there's learning, but you're also creating future aspirations as well.
In
Yeah.
honoring
So,
in honoring the sacrifices that were made before you, so that you
yes.
could have those opportunities in the present.
So there's the past, there's past, present, and the future. And you did mention several teachers that stood out for you. So what is it that they did that really helped you?
Well, Mrs. Wright, she was my ESL teacher, so she was the first teacher that I kind of like first felt a sense of connection, because she was teaching me English, versus showing up to like history. And I remember like in history class, the teacher would say, highlight in the textbook everything that you think it's important. So I would highlight the entire book because I felt that everything was important. But she told me, she taught me. The definitions of things. She taught me how to understand social and academic language and the importance of both. She taught me that it was key that in order for me to succeed, that I also needed to be disciplined and to have certain key
Mm.
values, like respect. And respect can be defined very differently across different cultures. So she taught me how to better understand not only the U.S. culture or the Houston culture, but the school culture, and things like being on time. That if you are on time, you're actually late. So she taught me different things to show up to the classroom, seconds before, and to sit down, because that showcased a sense of respect to your teacher. Whenever I think about my math teacher, Mr. High Note, that I made in high school, he was not the best social speaker, but when it came to the things about math, he was so passionate. And math was something that we could connect with, even though we didn't speak the same language, but we were speaking in connecting through a universal language, which was through numbers. And I could showcase my level of academic intelligence, while at the same time, seeing him praise, the work that I was doing, seeing him praise the effort, seeing him honor my trying. That made me believe in myself. It strengthened my self-confidence, even though I could not really understand when he would say words like congratulations, because I just couldn't understand the level of English. But I did know how to solve certain numeric, or algebra problems, because numbers were very, are not very, but they're the same in English and Spanish. So I was able to transfer my academic knowledge from Spanish that I developed in Honduras as a child,
Hmm.
to math in the United States. So I think it was beautiful to have teachers not only believe in me, but also challenge me, and discipline me, and teach me new things, even though it was probably not to the best method that I thought. Because whenever you're getting your ears pulled, for example, like my coach, in soccer, if I didn't pass my classes, I either needed to do extra laps, running, or I was not gonna be starting on the soccer team. So I developed a stronger sense of responsibility through the ideas and principles they taught me.
Yeah. So just a few things I wrote down as you were talking. So, I mean, high expectations are very important. Of course, they should be aligned with the individual. Drawing on prior learning. I actually remember there was, I think it was in fifth grade, they learned about ancient civilizations. And I talked to a student who come recently from Honduras. And like, I'm telling the teacher about this, and he's like, oh, really? Like just didn't like, okay, he actually knows a lot more about this than maybe even you do because he lived near, he learned a lot about those already. And also the sequence is sometimes different in other countries as well. So it's not that the student is just, over the top brilliant. It's just they've already been taught this. And, this isn't the start of their educational experience. Most students, I mean, there are some exceptions, but most newcomers have had schooling in other places. So drawing on that and being aware of that, and especially if there's something that is, unique to your culture, like in, Central and America and Mexico, like, there's a lot of historical sites around ancient civilizations in these areas. Um, and then the last thing I had was also just messaging, like, you're teaching the students, but also explaining things to them that they might not be aware of and just, coaching them so they understand the language acquisition process. And like, I always tell my students, well, the good thing is you only have to learn English once. So like it's hard. It's we wish it were a more consistent language sometimes, but once you get it, you'll get it, and then you don't have to worry about it ever again. So those kinds of things. Did you have anything to add on that?
Yeah, I think that the fact that a student who already has a first language and already speaks a native language, it's proof that they know how to learn a language.
Hmm.
It's proof. And learning a second language, it's easier once you already know a first language because there are so many transferable skills, especially from Spanish to English. It's difficult for me to say that I knew that then, but now when
Hmm.
I backtrack and I flashback and I think about the prior knowledge that I brought into the classroom, I knew so much about capitals around the world and rivers and geography and history and I knew about economics and I knew about international policy because as you mentioned, I lived it. I was impacted by it when I was in Honduras. It's just that whenever I was learning it from books, whether it was in the bachelor's or the master's or the PhD program, I was having so many flashbacks to the things that I learned as a child because
Hmm.
because our present is connected to our past and our future is connected to our present and our past. So I think that for me it was very beautiful to make all these connections and what's key also to highlight is that no way am I an example of success, but instead I consider myself a sample of the capacity and
Hmm.
potential that newcomer and multilingual students bring into the classroom. Because the knowledge that I had when I was in the classroom is ancestral knowledge. It's social capital. It's a desire to succeed, which is not isolated to myself, but it's connected to the desires of so many immigrant students and migrant students that come to this nation because they want to be able to find hope through education and because they want to create a generational legacy through the power of higher education. So to me, it's just evidence that education, more than being a barrier, is really an opportunity to create an impact in the future.
So for newcomers in particular, or any student, as long as you consider like when did they come to the US, there's this whole world of knowledge and experience that happened before. And if you tap into that, like, the success rate is just going to go up, 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 whereas if you just deny that, you don't look into it. And again, students, when they're coming, they don't always come with this metacognitive. I'm not sure if that's the right word in this awareness, but hear me out. Just a sense of awareness of, they respond more to how the school system is treating them. So again, like you can tap into that and really, let them flourish. But if you just kind of say like, okay, this is day one, we're starting from scratch, you're really missing out on a lot of the potential in these students. Did
A
I
hundred
did I say
percent.
that well?
Yeah, no, 100%. And on the other layer of the coin, I think it's also key to also highlight that it's not just a romantic story, not to romanticize the story, because when it comes to coming from another nation and living under absolute or extreme levels of poverty, which is different than poverty in the United States, whenever you live under military brutality, under worsened conditions, under natural disasters that do not have federal aid or humanitarian support, students experience a lot of trauma that when it goes untreated, it impacts their ability to perform because our trauma limits our ability to effectively communicate. And whether that is trauma that they themselves have experienced, or for a lot of multilingual students that have either been born in the United States, but their families went through those conditions
Mhm.
and they're experiencing the collateral trauma of that. Trauma limits their ability to communicate. So when students are being assessed in the language or through their speaking, reading, writing, or listening domains, they might not be able to fully communicate what they really know because trauma limits
Mhm.
their ability to communicate. That's why, to me, education plays also a very strong sense of healing, of empowerment, of developing leadership skills that can help somebody heal through time. Because education and the hope that education provides is beyond just the idea of financial stability, is beyond the idea of having a great job or getting this big mansion or just having this all these assets. It's power. It's power to be able to liberate yourself from so many experiences that are not necessarily bad because those experiences made you, but so that your future generations don't have to go through the same pain. But also, we have a responsibility to teach what those experiences mean, because we are not a problem, but instead we are part of the solution.
Excellent. And on that note, can you tell us about your current work that you're doing in your organization?
Well, I'm very passionate about education. Very, very passionate about education. I'm also very passionate about public speaking because I believe that words have power. And when it comes to the work that we're doing now, it's being an evolution. It's being an evolution grounded in perseverance. It's being an evolution grounded in academic excellence. In the idea that education creates a generational legacy. And I'm very passionate about having a learning exchange with communities. So since 2019, when I first completed the program, I started Dr. Zelaya Educational Consulting, and with the idea of being a motivational speaker and traveling the country, just talking about my personal story and the power of education. But things very quickly developed and evolved, especially after the pandemic, when we were addressing the learning loss, and schools needed more motivation and more empowerment. Work really started escalating very, very rapidly. And with that growth also came a lot of challenges because there were a lot of things that I didn't know. So I started learning from communities. I started collaborating with communities and partnering with communities across different areas of service when it came to public speaking, professional development, community and family empowerment, as well as curriculum and instruction. So now what we do is that we serve communities, but not only school. Not only the public school system from K through 12, but we also collaborate with colleges and community and universities when it comes to recruitment students from backgrounds of being multilingual or first generations or Hispanics, so that they can make it institutions of higher education, such as Texas A&M. So have various opportunities to collaborate in the field of bilingual education, higher education, but also personal and professional development.
Well, great. I mean, you're doing great work. We're so excited to have you this year in Michigan. Have you been to Michigan before?
I have. I've been to Ann Arbor, I believe.
Ann Arbor?
Yeah, I think there's a
Yeah, yeah.
university
University of
there.
Michigan,
Yeah,
my alma mater.
I had the opportunity to be there several years ago and being part of a panel that was dealing with a conversation around human rights and immigrant students in institutions of higher education. So it's so beautiful. I can't wait. I cannot wait.
Well, you're lucky you're coming in May and not winter. But yeah, yeah, it's beautiful. We're all there for a reason. So before we sign off, did you have anything else that you wanted to add on this conversation?
I think that if there's anything I would like to add is just I'm very grateful for the opportunity to serve at Mabe. I'm looking forward to not only being a speaker, but also being a spokesperson on behalf of a greater vision, of a vision of the fact that students' native language is not an impediment to the English language acquisition, but in fact is a catalyst to English development. And also that there is a huge difference between just learning English and becoming bilingual or trilingual or multilingual, because in the United States and in the world, we live in a global international society, and it is so beautiful to speak more than one language y poder comunicarse en más de un idioma. Es hermoso to be able to communicate in more than one language. Is extremely beautiful, and I cannot wait to be at Mabe, to be able to learn also from the work on the ground, so that not only can I come in to share, but also that when I walk away, I'm also shaped and molded by the knowledge and experiences that are guiding the work that Mabe is doing. So thank you very much for the opportunity. I'm very, very grateful.
Excelente, amigo. So just to mention, so your website is drzelaya.com, DRZELAYA. You're on Facebook, you're on LinkedIn, you're on Instagram, all those good spots. So thank you so much for joining us, and we'll see you in May.
Gracias.